Hello and welcome! Silrace here with Mechwarrior Online. I finally have the time to make this video, so let's charge right into it. So the 4-week testing period for the merge queue, the group queue and solo queue merged together is over. And we already got the communication that merge queue is here to stay for the foreseeable future of Mechwarrior Online. Okay, fine. I wanna talk about my thoughts on this whole thing and also on the actual testing. My thoughts, my opinions on that. Let me point out the background for this, just some Mechwarrior Online gameplay. If you just don't wanna hear my opinions and you just wanna see some gameplay, just mute this video and enjoy the gameplay, okay? So let me first point out that when this whole thing started, this testing, I put out a video where I put some predictions down. For example, a prediction that a group would have too much influence over the match, a 4-player group. And that is what we have seen through the entire thing. Even if you have a group, or when you have a group on both sides, the group that is comprised of higher skilled players as opposed to lower skilled players on the opposing team creates a very lopsided match. Tonnage restrictions are not going to solve this problem, even though they have messed around with them a little bit already and so on. It is not going to solve this problem at all, because we have already seen groups of 4 highly skilled players just taking 4 light mechs and still absolutely destroying the enemy team. So, the tonnage restrictions are not going to fix the problem. And we can argue forever about doing things like limiting it to 1 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy, 1 assault for a group, and so on. Like those arguments can be made forever, and I think that some of that is worth testing for a short period of time. Like, okay, for this 1 week we will test this change. For this 1 week we will test this change, and so on. I think this is my opinion. Hold on to this merge queue for a few weeks as it is, and then do a little bit of testing like that. I recommend PGI would do that, but I don't know. I don't think they will. Anyway. The main problem with Mechwarrior Online in general when it comes to this stuff is the fact that we have a small player base. Relatively speaking, if you take the size of the player base, there is a proportionally high amount of highly skilled players because the player base is so small. Which creates this whole situation where we're often a average Joe like myself or like most of the player base runs into the highly skilled players in matches because of, you know, the small player base. This is not a problem with in games where there is a large, massive player base. Let's say World of Tanks, for example. There are some really highly skilled players out there. You can play an entire evening on the same server as they are and never see them during that evening. Try to do that in Mechwarrior Online. And this is the part problem why I don't think this merge queue, no matter what you try to do with the tonnage restrictions and so on, is not going to solve this particular problem of lopsided matches when you have to pit a lower skilled group against a higher skilled group. This is going to be one of those situations where it is up to the community to resolve the problem. Well, whether it's the highly skilled players like splitting into smaller groups, or whether it's the lower skilled players just realizing, okay, we are going to get crushed from time to time, maybe not every game, but you know, from a lot of the time, and just toughing it out because of the enjoyment of the game, hopefully. Anyway, making the group smaller, as in, let's say, dropping it from 4 players to 3 players max, that could be a little bit of a, you know, problem solver, but then we are again pushing back closer, you know, more and more towards the whole solo queue as an idea. That is the, you know, away from this mixed merge group queue anyway. Now, I admit, there is benefits obviously to this merge queue. The fact that games have been coming up faster, for most of us anyway, and at most of the times of the day, games have definitely been coming up faster, and that is a good thing. There is some people out there obviously talking about being willing to wait for, let's say, 2 minutes to get a sort of a balanced match, but in all honesty, I don't think that is a vast majority of the player base. I cannot, quote any statistics on that, but I don't think so, because a lot of people want to, considering the speed games typically end in Mechwarrior Online at this time, most people don't want to spend as much time or more in a queue waiting for a game which will last about the same time as the queue will last. I don't think that is an enjoyable experience for a vast majority of people. I may be wrong, and I hope that somebody has the statistics to prove me wrong. If you do, please post them in the comment section below. So anyway, my thoughts is that I am not against the merged queue. While I personally feel that solo queue would be better overall for Mechwarrior Online, we have too many different queues as is. We have faction play, we have Silrace, which has what? How many different queues does this damn Silrace have? And we had solo queue and group queue. So now we have just merge queue, so that ate 2 queues out of the equation. But that's just me. I think we need to lower the amount of queues because the game does not have enough players to play all the modes at once. Anyway, as in keep them active through the entirety of the day. Okay, let's talk about the testing now at the end here, because I think I've rambled enough and my opinions are kind of clear. I'm not against this merge queue, but I didn't see this as a necessity. Obviously, this might bring back a few players who like to play with their friends in groups to be absolutely stomped to the ground by highly skilled players, and then probably leave the game again. That is just how I see it happening. Anyway, let's talk about the testing itself, because the testing was... I'll just use the word garbage. I don't wanna go any further than that, but if you are a prospective game developer, if you do any research, whether for work or for fun in real life, this is not how you test stuff. This is not how you research things. If you want to get, actual testing by the test group, which is us, the players at this point. Let me splash you an information bat here, which is a snippet from the actual communication we got from the folks getting this test done. So for first 2 weeks we had a certain set of parameters, for this merge queue, and then they changed them without telling anybody. And it even reads right here in this. I didn't tell you. Seriously? Players could tell pretty much instantly, like took a day or 2 maybe, and player was like, okay, something changed. But you you cannot give proper feedback if you don't know that things actually changed on the background, in the actual setup of the whole thing was changed. So yeah. While most people figured, okay, something was changed in the background, like a lot of folks figured that out, but you don't know exactly what changed. You might attribute some of it to changes in the player base itself, because we had already been testing for 2 weeks. There might be people who left or new people coming in to test, or people may have as a general consensus, people might play differently as a result of already having been experienced with this thing for 2 weeks. So you could attribute some of it to the player base, but obviously it's like something changed, we don't know what. Don't do this sort of testing. Like I said, if you are doing any testing, research, in real life, or for video games, or for whatever. This is not how you test when you have a test group. Especially if you haven't done, you know, covered testing. Because this is not covered research. We were told that we are testing stuff. Changing stuff in the background without telling people just doesn't give you any actual data, because the players can't give you accurate feedback on those changes. Ugh, so very annoying. Oh, let me follow that up with the with another bit of the data, okay? To illustrate the point a little bit further. This is another snippet from the communication bit we got, where it says that stomp rates went up by 5%, and then they went back down to 1%. I assume that went back down to 1% is an increase of 1% instead of 5%, instead of, you know, yeah, whatever. So you can read this you know, a little differently if you wish, but I assume that we have, with the changes 2 weeks in, we had 1% increase in stomps instead of 5% increase in stomps. Okay. The problem with this data is that this is a very good marketing speech stuff. This is what you do when you try as a selling proposition to people. Okay, we had a 5% increase, but we didn't want that much because that was too much. So we got it down to 1%. And then somebody asks you, well, 5% of what? And you don't provide any of that information. No, it's fine, it's down to 1% now. So, did we go from 90% to 95 and then down to 91? Because that is pretty high percentage, whether it's 95 or 91. You get my point? This data is completely irrelevant to anybody who actually understands statistics and has done actual testing and research. This is just a selling at the end, a selling point. You tell the customer that, haha, we had a problem early on. We got it up. It went up by 5%. Okay, but we managed to shave it down to 1%. Don't worry about it anymore. Okay, it's good now. Please don't ask any questions. Okay, it's good now. Oh jeez, this is not how you test. Okay, this is not how you test. This is not how you communicate information either. But that is my thoughts on this whole thing. I think I have rambled way too much now. Merge queue is here to stay. I don't know if that is a very good thing. That is my thought and opinion. I don't think that is a very good thing. Probably. Maybe, possibly, it might breathe a little life to the game for a while. Possibly. But in the long stretch, I don't know if it's going to keep the game alive. That's just me. Me and my opinions, my thoughts on it. Thank you very much for listening to this ramble, and if you muted me and watched the gameplay instead, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you folks next time with more content.